Hello, welcome. This is the Resilient Rooster. I'm back with another Yu-Gi-Oh video, and today I'm going to be showcasing Herald. So Herald is a ritual deck, and it's based around just negating what your opponent tries to do by just discarding a fairy monster. And since it's a ritual deck, it has a lot of access to starting cards like Preparation of Rites, which is now at 3, and Pre-Preparation of Rites. Also, you have Cyber Angel Bentan, which if you tribute it, you can basically add any fairy cards. And we have the Venus and Archlord Christia. Archlord Christia basically stops your opponent from special summoning, and Venus makes it easier to access your Skull Dread, and hopefully that Skull Dread will draw you the 4 cards you need to go off your plays. And the only hand trap I run in this deck is Drone Lock, since it basically stops all the searches as soon as they search one card. Like if they use Terraforming, you just activate the Drone Lock, and now they can't. You don't need to waste any more negates on like their searching cards. You just have to just focus on just negating the board wipes or anything that's problematic to your field. I run the Eve just so I can get, when I ditch it with Herald of Perfection, I can add up to 2 different names. So that's why I put the orange and green. And maybe sometimes like if they try to ask you, maybe you can activate Orange Light if you drew it by accident. And plus you can always put stuff back with Skull Dread. So that's basically my idea of this deck. I run the Instant Fusion so I can play the Millennium-Eye Restrict to stop the hand traps, and 1000-Eye Restrict just so if I am in a problematic situation I can just suck it up. And this is it for the deck list, and let's get right on to the replays. I would say that this deck is good against anything that special summons a lot, so basically almost every deck. I would say that this deck's weakness is basically against decks that don't special summon, which is like True Draco and stuff. So right now I activate the Instant Fusion, so now my opponent can't really activate any hand trap because I could just suck it in. And this is where you basically just do all your search cards, so that way once you get Herald onto the field, you don't need to worry about the Millennium-Eye Restrict, since you can basically cover yourself. So now that I have Herald of Perfection, basically nothing's gonna stop me from using Venus and basically making Skull Dread. So I got the 4 materials, I make Link Rebo and just keep linking up. So I got 4 different names, make Skull Dread, draw another 4 cards. It gets Ash, but I had the hand trap for that, or have the answer for that. So I got the Drone Lock, so now I'm basically safe from all the search cards. And I got the Christia, and I want to use the Christia's effect so that I can basically search when I special summon it. So I special summon it, not using the Skull Dress effect but by its own effect, and now it's 3500, so it's pretty beefy to get over. They activate the Regeki, but I had the answer, but they had the Ogre, so they got rid of my Herald, but now I have the Drone Lock, so it basically stops all their search. With my opponent just having 1 monster on the field, I basically have enough for game, since they're all very beefy thanks to Skull Dread's effect of beefing up my monsters by 300 and my Gachi for another 400. In this next game, my opponent gets to go first, and since I don't have a Drone Lock in hand, they get to play unopposed. So this will be me showcasing what this deck can do if it goes second. Right now, they don't have the best field since they only have a Mecha Ball, but that probably means that they have some hand traps at their disposal. I do have the Instant Fusion, so I have at least one, or I can stop at least 1 monster effect. I tried to activate the pre-prep, and that's where it got Ash. I tried to negate it, but they have the Mecha Ball for it. So I basically get rid of 2 cards with 2 cards, but it sucks that I can't search for Herald anymore. The good news though is if my Venus doesn't get stopped by an Ogre, I basically can go off. So at this point, I'm banking that they don't have an Ogre, otherwise they would have Ogred. So I make my Skull Dread, which draws me the 4 cards, and I drew into Brionic. And Brionic is good in just bouncing the Mecha Ball, since I can play around the Alistair. Since if they use the Alistair, then the Mecha Ball will be at 3500. And right now, I was able to search cards with Bentan, because if it gets distributed, you can search. So right now, I sort of misplayed by summoning that Shine Ball here. I should have summoned it on this side, so it would get an 800 point boost. But right now, this is perfect 9000, since I upstarted earlier. I would say that this deck's biggest weakness is if you don't get to summon the Herald and you get Drone Locked, it basically slows you down completely. But right now my opponent doesn't have a Drone Lock, so I get to just search all the cards I want. But you see how I believe my first 4 cards all had searching abilities. The only card that didn't search was the Herald itself. But right now, since I got the Herald of Perfection on the field, basically the hand trap doesn't really, it's not as effective anymore, since I could just negate anything that they try to do. So I was able to get the Venus to get the 3 shine balls, and then I make the Skull Dread, draw 4 cards, and I draw into Eva. And Eva has a effect where if it gets sent to the graveyard, you can basically add 2 level 2 fairy monsters from your deck to your hand. So I basically have 2 negation, 2 cards in hand. But as soon as they activate a problematic card, like Negate, I can send it and I can add 2 different names. So I get 2 more negates. You don't really use these cards just to negate. You just use it to use that as bait for Herald Perfection. This is one of the games where I added Brilliant Fusion, and I think Brilliant Fusion really helps out a lot. Plus, you have a lot of cards in your extra deck, so adding a Seraph Knight won't do much. But I did raise the deck count to 42, but I think it's worth it in the long run. I made the Herald first, that way I can avoid any hand traps. And I had the Ogre, so I was kind of lucky to summon it first. So I made the 3 shine balls, and you want to get 2 fairies in the grave before you activate Brilliant Fusion. That way you can get the most use of Eva. And once Eva gets to the graveyard, I banish 2 cards and I add 2 more negations, so it's pretty good. And from that, I basically made the Skull Dread. Skull Dread draws 4 cards. I got the Joel Lock, so now I don't need to worry about my opponent's searching cards, and I have 3 negates for anything that can break my board. They can't special summon either, so it's basically a lockdown. I would say one of the worst matchup for this deck is basically True Dracos, because 1, they don't special summon, and 2, they have a lot of cards that can out the Herald in general. They have the trap cards, which can basically destroy a monster if it gets sent to the graveyard, which means they can just tribute it by their monster, and they send the trap and they destroy the Herald. Herald can't stop graveyard effects or at least in terms of spells and traps. So no matter how many cards you have in your hand, you can't really stop the destruction effect. And that's kind of problematic for Heralds. I would say one good card to side though is maybe the Kyoto Waterfront. That way you can search the Game of Seal and negate it if it gets sent to the graveyard. So I would say that that's probably, some of the side techs that you could use if you want to play this deck. And this was one of my wins I had against the True Draco, but it's because they already had 2 monsters, and they had to cover the demise, but they had 2 monsters in their hand, so they couldn't really get that far. So my point now is just basically have to get a lot of cards in attack mode, just try to attack for game as quickly as you can, because if they ever get a masterpiece on board, it's gonna suck. And they drew into the Draco Phoenix, so if they draw into any power cards, they can basically stop me. So I have to wait until they activate one card of the demise, and I was able to just negate it. So at this point they didn't really have much, and I could just attack for a game. So yeah, I felt very confident in the hand I had going through this game. I basically had the drone lock, and I had the pre-preparation of right just to get through my plays. I felt like I had a good start. I was able to basically make all my plays without any interruptions. I got the Venus, I got through all my combo strings that I could probably go through. I might miss a few, but for the most part, I think I got like a lot of the plays I did right. But I end up just getting knocked down by the trap card, the True Draco Apocalypse, which they could just set it and just tribute, which basically cost me like the whole thing. I was able to get, I believe, three negations. I didn't summon the Christia because they don't special summon anyway. So I have 3 negations and a drone lock, but I just ended up getting knocked down. I drone locked there, but they were able to chain and search their last cards. And their Dragonic Diagram basically allows them to survive any battle once. So now they got a 3KB stick to beat over the Skull Dread, and the Majesty Maiden could just crash through the Bionic and just knock it out. So I was at an uphill battle right now. I was trying to see like what kind of plays I could do, and that's where I wish that this terraforming was maybe like a Kaiju, like the Waterfront Kaiju. But unfortunately, I don't run in this deck, so it's things to consider when building a deck. And I couldn't even attack over this thing because the Dragonic Diagram was on the field, and this is where they just pop off. I believe they're gonna draw 3 cards from True Draco Heritage. They tributed their trap cards to get rid of my field basically, and They shuffle, they draw more, then their heritage draws them 3, and there's nothing that you can really do. Even like they even have a mono waddle, so I can't even activate any monster effect at this point. So even if I had Herald on board, I won't be able to stop it, and they were just able to attack for game. In the end, this was my build for Herald. Obviously, there's a lot of adjustment that can be made, but if you enjoyed the video, please click the like button. If you want to see more Yu-Gi-Oh content, please click the subscribe button. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.